Yeah, hi everybody. I just always love it when this happens because it reminds me of why we are doing this work. It's for Ileana and her and all the children that have the most at stake in a lot of the work that we're doing. So yeah, welcome back. This is our final third session of the 3 breakouts. We're going to be building on some of the work that we did last week. And it looks like Heather's back around. Ileana's maybe doing okay. Heather, did you have some more welcoming remarks that you wanted to throw down?
Yeah, she's doing good for the moment. Some Rainbow Ruby. Yeah, I just want to thank you all so much for being here and participating in these 3 sessions. I know it has been a lot of your time um, and not just like your time here, but just emotional time as well. So I just want to welcome you all to session 3 and appreciate you for putting the time in. So what is So today, we can go to the next slide. So my name's Heather Augustine. I am the main community organizer for Wabanaki Reach, and I also have a couple amazing growing projects, growing some of our traditional foods around the Brunswick area. And I have been on a core team with Scott Vaughn, who's one of my new favorite people. It's been a pleasure doing this work with him. And Sandy Gilbreth and Joelle Albury are also here with us today. And Annie Doran has been just an amazing leader in keeping us all moving in the right direction throughout this project. So these are the people that are here on behalf of the Convergence today. So for today, we will be just realizing the interconnection between us all, the issues that we may have had, we'd love to hear, and some of your ideas and dreams for what you'd like to see come out of this. We'll have an opportunity for reflection and reframing before our breakout work sessions, and also get together. This is a term that is new to me, cross-pollination, but like I love it now. I'm always using it. So we'll have an opportunity to cross-pollinate with the other tracks and what their work has been, and see our connections and how we can work together with those great connections. Oh. UPS is here. You can probably hear my dog. Do we have the text slide? Are we going to do that one?
Coming.
Oh, text slide's coming. Okay.
Unless we happen to Joelle.
Sorry about that. Too many windows going on here.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. Okay, so just a couple tech notes, probably kind of repetitive by now, but if we are Zoom bombed, we will quickly email you a link so we can restart the meeting where we left off. Please mute your phone and yourself unless you're talking. And at any time, if you need to take a break, obviously, like whatever, do your thing. And just try not to log off, because then you'll have to come back to the waiting room, and then hopefully someone's paying attention. If you have any tech questions, please privately chat Sandy, the tech person, and she can help you with any questions. Hopefully, sometimes the questions are like beyond us. We don't know how to help you. So you might have to Google that question. That's how I find a lot of answers to a lot of my big issues, that and YouTube. So today we will be recording our session and taking screenshots throughout. So make sure you look good. No, I'm just kidding. If you don't want us to, if you don't want to be a part of that, you can just turn your camera off. And if you have any questions about that, you can also just send a message to the tech person, Sandy. So our mission has been throughout this convergence to develop deeper relationships and greater trust as we co-create an equitable and thriving food system for Maine. So that's our mission, and I feel like we are working really hard to achieve that mission with all of your input and help throughout this process.
Great, thank you, Heather.
Welcome.
Yeah, so as we always do when we meet, we do a land acknowledgement. I just like us all to take a moment, take a deep breath, take a moment of silence to acknowledge that we are all standing on the traditional homelands of the Wabanaki if we're here in Maine. And that the work that we're doing around land use and around rebuilding our food system here in Maine is all involving those lands that are the traditional homelands of the Wabanaki, the people of the Dawn. So yeah, if we could just take a moment to reflect on that. Thank you all for doing that. I am going to put in the chat some links. Heather and I were talking this morning about a nice way to sort of go a little deeper into this work could be to just try to understand some of the place names that are around you and where they came from. I know here in my area, I was telling Heather, the town of Norway is actually a translation, or not a translation, but just a change of a Wabanaki name that was where this village was on Lake Penissiwasi, and it just got turned into Norway. It has nothing to do with the town of Norway or with the country of Norway. So there's some good links there to explore some of this stuff a little deeper, but something to always keep in mind as we talk about our land here.
And I just want to add something quick about land acknowledgements. You'll find in some of the links that Scott is putting in the chat a link to Wabanaki Reach's website where you can sign up for our mailing list. That'd be great. But also Maria Gerard just has a blog about land acknowledgements. And as a Wabanaki person, I always feel like it's best for someone that's non-native to do land acknowledgements, and also a land acknowledgement is it's acknowledging the people in the ways in which the land has been taken through violent means, and it's also a commitment to someone like Ileana to change the future for us. I mean, she certainly is a stakeholder in that. So that's how I feel about land acknowledgements is, you know, do your research, and it should be from the heart and off the cuff, and it shouldn't be something that we just, you know, acknowledge that this land was taken. It's more than that, and it's not a box that we check off and say, okay, we did our land acknowledgement. It's really a commitment. So that's my little spiel. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, so today, this is session 3, like we mentioned. I hope most of us were at session 2, which for a lot of us was pretty powerful. I know my friend Carly, who's been doing the videos, sent me a text as she was halfway through watching that panel session, said she was in tears. I think there was a lot of powerful words and a lot of powerful ideas put out last week that hopefully we can build on here today. So today is our organizing for action. But before we get into the hard work here, or joyous work, for however you look at it, we kind of wanted to hear from folks. So if you go to the next slide, Joelle, there's a little prompt here. We'd just like people to take a minute to share, a minute or less, to just share. We've got 12 minutes or so, 12 or 13 minutes, to share an example of a new connection that you've made through the convergence, or a new issue that's been brought to your attention, maybe an idea that's come to you, something that you plan to act on, you plan to follow up on. So, like it says, a minute or less, but please don't be shy. And I think Heather's gonna kick us off and set the tone here, and then we'll from there. So
Thanks, Scott. So when a couple of years ago, I really decided to commit myself to working on projects with Wabanaki people or for the benefit of Wabanaki people. And this summer, I had filled out a survey for the Convergence, just random. I didn't even remember filling it out. And so someone from the Convergence got in touch with me kind of late into the planning process, but however, I was really grateful to be asked and to be a part of this. And Scott and I, and we're kind of a unique pair in that we're both just kind of dreamers, and we've spent a lot of time just talking and just becoming friends and nurturing our shared interests. And I've learned so much from him, and just from being a part of the Convergence, learning some organization and starting to have this sense of like being okay with processes and tools that I have never really understood or wanted to, like a rubric. Like I always had this like aversion to rubrics, and now I see that they can be a really helpful tool, as well as the systems map. I really had this like wall up and not wanting to even understand it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it once I saw it, and it just stuck with me. And I started to really understand this way of systems thinking and the interconnection between issues in systems, and the way of sort of utilizing a systems map and finding the leverage point between systems and issues to really do something to that will have an impact and will be able to change the lives of, hopefully, I have faith in many of my community members. So, my connections that have developed, of course, are with Scott and Annie and the other members of the team, but I know that in the future we will have projects, okay, that we will get to work together and do something great. So baby girl's letting me know that I'm done.
that was awesome, Heather. And I won't take up a lot of time, but I will say that meeting Heather and spending the amount of time we've been able to spend together has taken a lot of things out of the realm of abstract for me. I've looked at tribal relations. I've lived in New Mexico and spent a lot of time, thinking about these issues, but never had the opportunity to really dig as deep as we have, and to take a lot of this in internalize it in a more personal way. So it's just been an honor to work with Heather on this track, and of course to work with everyone on this project. Is relationships that we've built here will be here for a lifetime. So anybody else want to step up? Just unmute yourself and
Joelle, if you could stop the screen share. Yeah, great.
So I'll chime in. And yes, Heather, Scott is the best kind of dreamer. And I've had a great time dreaming with him for at least 10 years. So this has been great, and I've been involved in all three tracks, and I'm reconnecting with people that I have not seen in a very long time, which has been great, like Mary Turner at Good Shepherd Food Bank and Hannah Semler at Farm Drop. And I'm meeting new people. And in this track, Aaron Englander and Tess Beam, Aaron from Maine Coast Heritage Trust and Tess from the Grassroots Fund, they were in my breakout group last week. And it's been great to meet them and hopefully get to work with them in the future. I mean, that's really my dream, is to actually get to work with people in person in the not too distant future. So thanks for all your work putting this together.
Thanks, Carl. Appreciate the kind words. It's an honor to work with you as well. Anybody else? There's 46 of us here. I'm sure everybody's got things they're dying to say. Don't be shy. Take a little space here.
I don't mind jumping in. And I might be stealing one from another person, but last session that I participated in, I had the opportunity to meet Ken Morse from Maine Food Policy Work Group, and I was able to share a new e-publication that he's coordinating to keep food councils and others aware of any policies that are being developed, any bills going through the legislature that would affect the food system. And Ken reached out to me about anything related to land trusts that might be applicable. And we do have a person at Maine Coast Heritage Trust who is dedicated to just that. So it was nice to be able to make that connection, and hopefully there will be some synergy there and some more opportunities to align these types of efforts or advocacy work for the food system and for land.
Thanks, Joel. A lot of people have mentioned that excitement about that. An easy way to kind of connect to the policy stuff, which can be a lot of work to dig in on your own. While people are taking a moment to think about things they might want to share, we've still got a few more minutes, but we have a quick poll that might stimulate some thoughts. So Sandy, you want to let that rip? There we are. Perfect. Oh, look at that. That looks like most folks have voted. So at least 83% of us have made it at least one connection, and a third of us have made 3 to 5 or more. So I think we're succeeding in what we've set out to do, is because the convergence is about building relationships, and hopefully they'll continue to flourish, and we'll continue to build over time.
And something I learned from Heather was thinking about these connections in terms of 7 generations of impact, right? And so even one connection can have lasting impact that we'll see for generations that we don't even know. We can't even, capture the impacts.
Okay, we've still got a few more minutes. Who else has got something they would?
I can speak up. It says Aaron from Maine Coast Heritage Trust. For some reason, it went on to safe driving mode. So I don't know what's going on here, but I don't know if you can see me or not.
We can't. We can see your name.
Oh, okay. I don't know how to get out of the safe driving mode, but anyways. So yeah, just kind of picking up on an idea that I shared last week of this Native Food Sovereignty Foundation. I was thinking fund initially, but it's kind of morphed into more of a foundation that can pool supplies and funds and resources, and then be redistributed from there. I work with the Nabizin Project and the Food Sovereignty Committee there, and that could be a really great place to house actual physical things and potentially channel resources through. But anyways, it's a seed of an idea that I'm excited about working on through the connections I've made here and other places. And yeah, unfortunately, I have to leave a little early today, but hoping to stay connected, and just really grateful to the organizers and the facilitators for putting this on. So thank you all very much. It's really exciting. A lot of good energy.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate that.
I can speak. Something particular I learned is I learned a lot about the history of permaculture in relationship to indigenous practices. I had no idea about any of that stuff. And through this convergence, I've met indigenous women who have talked to me about their perspective on it. And I've met farmers who are currently using like aquaculture or permaculture on their own farms. So it's been really interesting to get sort of like this different range of perspectives. And I feel like I can now imagine applying what I'm learning to be able to help my partner when he ends up setting up his aquaculture farm. I can be able to say like, this is what I'm learning and these are resources we can use to educate ourselves, which I never would have even known to do that had I not participated. So that's like a very tangible individual awakening moment from being a part of the convergence.
Oh, that's awesome. Warms my heart. We have time for one or two more if people.
Jesse, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you. Oh.
Put your headphones on, girl.
Oh. Are we trying to get Kessie to connect?
She's working on it. There. Maybe. No, not yet. Oh, no. We can circle back to you, Kessie, later when you figure
Anybody have
You
a,
could also use the chat, Kessie, if you wanted to type that we could all see.
I think she might have signed off to try to come back on again, so keep moving along.
any last words from anybody before we jump into our next steps here? Well, thanks for everybody, for those who shared out. And if you have other thoughts, like Sandy was saying, just yeah, feel free to drop them in the chat, because I think it's an inspiration for everybody to hear how this is all playing out. So we're gonna move ahead to talk a little bit about Heather and I. We were kind of reflecting on, if you remember from the first two sessions, we had kind of this theory of change model that we had the beginning, where all the issues that we were dealing with, like our current conditions, and then this vision of where we were hoping to, excuse me, where we're hoping to take this. And I took those out of that document and put them here in a list, so we could kind of look a little more closely at where we're trying to go with this. And then we're going to look at our actions that came out of last week's session and how those actions maybe relate to these 5 points from our vision. So I think Heather's going to start with the first one, if she's.
Yep, I'm ready. I want to just bring forward Kessie's comment that she put in the chat. She's having some issues with a bad mic, but Kessie said she's grateful for the conversations with Jesse Watson on permaculture, and she looks forward to continuing those outside of this conference. So that's our goal in all of this work, is that these conversations will continue. So that's good. So as far as this reflection and reframing slide, one of our bullets is abundant and equitable and resilient farming and fishing systems that increase the quantity and quality of Maine grown food. And I think I said this in the opening, that when the pandemic first hit and we all went to the grocery stores to buy food, and we looked up at empty shelves. And I know for me, the first thing that I did was like head to the local farm stand. And so many of my family and friends did the same. And I just think like the farm stands and the local farmers really kept us alive. And I'm so appreciative of that. And I think that we have a lot of work to do to show our appreciation for that, and to create a food system where we can keep more of the food in Maine and support our farmers, who I think are probably have the least amount of appreciation for the great work that they're doing. And it's my goal to continue to center the needs of farmers and fishermen moving forward in this work. So, you want to take the next one, Scott?
And you kind of segued right in there. Our second point here is well-supported fishing and farming communities. And I'm actually going to stitch back to that first one in terms of the quality of Maine-grown food. Some people were like, what do you mean? Because we're talking down to the third one about, and these all, everything just interrelates so much, but we're talking about building healthy soils and biodiverse systems. And those healthy soils will produce higher quality food than food that's grown in traditional or conventional ways in Maine. But in terms of supporting our fishing and farming communities, it's huge, because they are the ones that are gonna lift us up and supply us with the healthy food that we need, and shorten those supply chains and build that resiliency in our food system here.
And so for our next bullet point, clean water, healthy soils, and rich biodiversity, I mean, I think that clean water is pretty much should be a given. And, we should all be able to have access to clean water. The more I learn about healthy soils and rich biodiversity, the more I want to learn. So I plan on focusing a lot of the education that I am looking to receive to be in these topics of healthy soils and rich biodiversity.
Yeah, super crucial. Another really important piece of building a resilient food system in Maine is the people that are working the land. That so many farmers struggle so much to get labor on the land they can't afford to pay. We're up against a juggernaut of cheap food that's created in a system that's mining soils, mining water, polluting the environment so that it can produce this really cheap food and also produce huge profits. So just thinking about those workers and land and water access for people that do want to grow food. There's a lot of young folks, marginalized folks that are like, they have the skills, they have the drive to want to grow food. They don't have access to a place to do it, or a place to fish, a place to do aquaculture. And all of that would lead to, just more dignity for food system workers who tend to be, kind of looked down upon. And I think we need to flip that. They are the ones that are feeding us. So,
Yeah.
And I'll leave that last one for you, Heather.
So tribal sovereignty and leadership, and we have in parentheses allyship with a question mark. And I think we want to sort of like talk for a minute about what it means to be an ally. And it's important, I think, for people that are interested in being allies to make sure that they are first asked to be an ally. When we want to support tribal sovereignty and leadership, I think we have to think about it less as a collaboration, because I think often non-Native people want to work in collaboration with Native people. And I think we're at the stage now in doing this work that we really have to put our focus in offering support to tribal leaders, and less about, having ownership over it or thinking about it as a collaboration. And in order to be an ally, you first have to be trusted. And one of the ways that you become trusted is by asking the community whom you wish to support for what they need. And when they tell you what they need, you don't say, oh, no, not that. We don't want to support you in that. What else do you need? And you ask them what they need. And when they give you an answer, you do that action. And if you do it enough times, you may eventually become trusted. And then after being trusted, you may become invited to be an ally. But that is, I think there is confusion around how that works, and especially working with Wabanaki people who have been so displaced and so much of us has been taken from us over the years in so many different ways. Each generation has had their own huge historical trauma that, if you reach out to a Wabanaki person, community, or organization and they don't respond, it's okay. We call that a Wabanaki no. And you just keep trying in gentle ways, and eventually you may become, you may get an answer back, and the answer that you receive, please follow through with that. So thanks, Scott.
Thank you. So just noted we were running a little behind. So moving on to the next, so just to remind people where we are, these were the chosen priorities that we had last time around. Land and water rights access, building bridges between the tribal and permaculture communities, and climate adaptation and fishing and farming and supply chains. So from our last week's session, we went through all the jam boards and tried to extract things that where there was a lot of energy. So one of the things that came up was to increase diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice in existing organizations, and especially in land trusts and in cooperative extension, where people that are making decisions about land use, marginalized communities, Wabanaki communities, people of color need to have seats at those tables to be involved in those decision-making processes, not brought in after the fact. And also that marginalized communities have access to culturally appropriate extension services, so they're not being taught processes that don't relate to their culture. And we're gonna have to move through these pretty quickly, but and then a lot of people are interested in building policy to support ecological land use, and there's a lot of re-subsidizing that has to take place because now public policy supports extractive, destructive land use. And crucially important here is to support those tribal sovereignty efforts led by Wabanaki people. We need to right that wrong that's been going on for so long. That's just preventing the good work from moving forward and restoring those rights. Heather, do you want to take on building bridges one?
Just FYI, I just put in the chat the link to the spreadsheet for signing up for the actions. So as these guys go along, I think I'm jumping the gun a little bit, sorry. These guys go along after talking about the priorities, if you can get into that spreadsheet when you understand which action you want to sign up for and start populating that so that we can get on organizing the breakout rooms.
There's 2 more slides where we're going to see possible actions, so you'll have maybe a little better clarity when you get to that.
Is this the slide that we're on right now?
Track B, building bridges, yep. Okay.
So as far as raising awareness of Native history, foodways, and sovereignty, there's a lot of great resources out there. There's 4 different, you can reach out to the different reservations. They all have tribal historians. You can access a lot of the information to learn about the history of the land that you are now inhabiting. in practice of decolonization. I mean, there's a lot of, it's become somewhat of a buzzword these days, but it's definitely ideas and ways of thinking and being that we could all benefit from. So, you know, Wabanaki Reach is certainly a resource for that work, and just continue to, you know, work towards an understanding of what decolonization means. And, you know, as a result of this convergence, I think we will have opportunities to build bridges between permaculture and Wabanaki-led organizations, and hopefully we will be able to work together using some of the new techniques from permaculture and some of our old school methods of ways of Wabanaki people grew food or helped to nurture the environment to get the things that they needed. And so we just have to commit to having some hard conversations and working together to, you know, be in harmony with this world.
And each other.
And each other. Thank you.
Yeah,
I go find a charger, Scott, so you can take the next couple.
Yeah, so the third of our priorities was climate adaptation. And one of the things that came up in the jam boards was to reach out to farmers, to work with farmers, to access, to find out what the needs are, to provide, so that we can provide technical assistance that makes sense. Again, you know, there's a lot of this is about soils. Climate adaptation is a lot about building soils that are more resilient. So working with farmers, find out what the needs are, and then providing that technical and financial assistance, which kind of goes into the next point here, which is shifting those regulatory structures around and the subsidies around so that we're promoting regenerative practices and increasing biodiversity and not promoting destructive practices. And some of this could be carbon markets, making those markets available to smaller scale farmers, other incentives in terms of building back you know, pollinator hedgerows and those sorts of things, of incentivizing things that are pro building back life in the ground and not destroying it. So those are the 7 action items that really rose to the surface through that. So now would be the time to sign up for that breakout session. And while you're doing that, we've got Ken Morse back to talk about some current policy stuff that's going to be that's happening in the near future, short-term stuff. So Ken, are you there? You want to chime in? Ken Morse, are you out there? I can't see.
He's muted again.
Ken, are you muted?
I was, yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Yep.
Hey, Ken, welcome back.
Could you switch to the next slide, the policy slide, please? Thank you. So this will be brief. The thing I've been learning about policy is it's not brief. It's very complicated. There's tons of bills. There were 2,000 bills submitted, and about 100 are related to food, and only about a third or 40% of those have been published, so they have an LD number. I just wanted to touch on a few that are sort of urgent because the hearings are coming right up. The first 2 on this list is the Maine Healthy Soils Program, and that hearing is coming up tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. I don't have time or room enough to put a lot of information about how you can join the hearings, but if you have subscribed to the policy newsletter, the details are in there, and you can watch on, each committee has a YouTube station, and there's other ways that you can join in. So that's 437. 489 is an amendment to the Constitution to establish a right to a healthy environment. And this is a really critical piece of work. If we can get it passed, it will create the foundation for a lot of good, healthy policy work, including food policy work moving forward. I think I only have a minute or two, so I'm not going to go into those others, but make a note of the LD numbers. And if you don't, I'd urge you to sign up for the policy news, and that will give you a lot of information with links to the bills and all that sort of thing. By the way, one thing I would suggest, I'm going to paste a bunch of links into the chat in a moment. One thing I'd suggest is save the chat. And probably, you know, there's 3 little ellipses at the bottom right. And so towards the end of the day, I find there's so much stuff put in the chat, and I don't have anywhere near time enough to copy and link it over during the session. So I would urge you to do that. So just a couple other things. There is the Cumberland County Food Security Council is hosting a food policy forum on March 12th. There's a little blurb about it there. A lot of the key legislators and others will be taking part in that. And there's a link for registration in the chat. Also, I should have mentioned when I mentioned the amendment to the Constitution, there is a petition for, it's what's called a Green Amendment. And there's a petition that I'll be putting in the chat that you can go to see if you support and sign the petition if you do for the Green Amendment. So, and then I will also put a link to this slide in the chat, so that if you haven't had a chance to make notes of that. And I would urge folks who are involved in some of this work, like Amy Winston, I know Amy is here, Tanya has worked on some of these things. If you're aware of what's going on with some of these bills, please share it with others in the breakout rooms. So I'll call that good, and I'll just go ahead and paste that stuff into the chat.
Thanks, Ken, for trying to wrangle all this stuff down for us. I would just add that the LD 489, that it's now called the Pine Tree Amendment. It's kind of commonly known as a Green Amendment, but in Maine, they're calling it the Pine Tree Amendment. And that hearing is on Monday. So great, I guess we're going into a break. Time to sign up for if you haven't signed up for which breakout. And some of these breakouts, if they don't get more than 2 or 3 people, will probably link you into another related one from that same.
Hey, Scott, can I say something about that? I think the best way to go about that, the best way to go about this is everybody signs up for where they want to go. If there's only 2 or 3 people in that action, then after you get into your breakout groups, you can decide if it makes sense to stay. Might be a powerhouse group and you just want to really, talk amongst yourselves, or you can decide to leave, go back to the main room, and then Sandy can plop you into another group. That's all I got.
Can I add one real quick thing? I forgot. On Friday, the Maine conservation voters are having a lunch and learn on tribal sovereignty, and there's a link to that in what I just pasted into the chat as well.
Thanks.
So Annie, it looks like we're in pretty good shape. What time are we due back after the break?
Well, 2:49, so 2:59, and
we're
do 10 minutes. Yeah, a couple minutes. Great. We're good.
Everybody back in 10 minutes.
And then we'll have breakouts.
3 o'clock, and we'll get into our breakouts. What was the new phrase? Collective Liberation Group. We're gonna maybe rebrand that one. Anybody?
So that would be me sharing out for that group.
Awesome, Julia.
So I think can I share my screen? That might make it easier. Just,
Sure.
It looks like I can.
Oh, you can't? Do you want me to share?
No, I can. I think I can.
Okay.
So our group was talking about, we got merged and we were diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice in organizations, or collective liberation, as Scott said, and then also supporting tribal sovereignty. And so the first question, I think, is just like the who should be involved. And we had just a lot of ideas about who needs to be there. It's everyone. But I think, in particular leadership, it's Wabanaki communities and BIPOC communities in Maine. So this is just kind of, to show you guys the summary. And then what steps need to be taken as a quick, I'll just highlight a couple. Obviously supporting the Tribal Sovereignty Bill, which I think is LD 2094. Please correct us if we're wrong about that. And also just, understanding what asks are already, what asks and demands are already out there by Wabanaki folks and by BIPOC communities, and checking for clarity on that. And, even mobilizing in our own communities where there's proximity to some of these groups to help meet their demands. And seeing, there was a great idea around just sort of determining, are there organizers in those communities like Wabanaki BIPOC food organizations that want to have their own conversations around this that are not moderated by white folks, and if there are, seeking funding for that. So that's probably all my time. So I'll stop there, and I'll stop a screen share.
Yeah, that's cool. And we're a little, we're not running behind, and we have less groups, so you don't feel so restricted to the 2 minutes.
Yeah, does anybody else from that group want to throw in anything there?
I really like the switch of terms from DEIJ, diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, to collective liberation. Just throw that out for people to ponder and perhaps use and explore.
Anything else on that group? No? Well, what about Food Forest group that I was just in? A richness to share there. I don't know if anybody was selected or not.
I don't think anyone was selected. I'm happy to do it as the facilitator, but also Scott or Heather or Cassie or anyone who knows a lot more about that than me and wants to share. No, okay.
Like Cassie was just about to jump in.
I'm going to turn off my video just because my voice doesn't come through. But oh, Cassie, go for it.
You're muted, Cassie.
I wasn't actually ready to. I was just getting in my seat.
Go for it, Chloe.
Do you have the slides, Chloe, to show our lists of things that we came up with? Because I can jump.
I do. Yeah. Do you want screen? I'll screen share them for everybody.
That was the neatest Jamboard I've ever seen, and
people are free to jump in. Oh my God! I really into that. So first we sort of went through questions about the food forest as a concept, and we talked a lot about entering spaces that are pre-existing versus the idea of sort of more like human-made ecosystems, which is more, I think that's closer to permaculture. And so we went through a lot of questions on this slide. And then for this slide, at the top, you can see different people in our group who have different things that they're able to offer for moving forward a Wabanaki-led food forest project. And then, yeah, we were talking about the kind of representation that wasn't there today that we need. And definitely we need more Wabanaki voices, of course. And definitely gatekeepers. So landowners, land trust managers, people who have power, basically. And, you know, educators to share truthful histories, stewards of existing food access spaces, people who are good at growing plants, food council members, gleaners. Those are some of the different things we mentioned. And then here is my super annoyingly Tetris looking thing. So I think our first step that we came to is language, and coming up with language that can be used across the board in this project, and then hopefully, you know, shared with everyone, you know, broader scale beyond just people involved in this work, that is correct and truthful and uniform. So, you know, that reduces a lot of chances of harm, because there's a lot of different language that can be used to talk about all of these different ideas and areas, and whether it's even the idea of like that name, the food forest, is that really what we want to call this? Because, you know, maybe that's not actually what we want to call it. Maybe we want to call it something that is more appropriate. So we talked a lot about language. We talked about, I'm trying to see, policies that could be helpful. And I don't know, I felt like the biggest takeaway from this whole thing, I feel like there's definitely forward momentum. I hope other people felt that way, but it seems as if like resources were found from this discussion, both within our own group and then also just brainstorming. So that's cool. I'm really excited to see what continues with this project.
One thing I want to add too is that my big takeaway was our ability to build authentic relationships with each other. Just within our breakout group, I felt like there was many people that I can reach out to for support and to share knowledge and to build these bridges to move forward. And so, yeah. Okay, so anybody else got something to add?
I was just thinking like something that came up for me was like the opportunity to let relationships form organically and naturally, and not have this like big push like, let's get your organization together with my organization and we'll have this, you know, platform and we'll have an agenda and, you know, this like organized process around relationship building. More like opportunities to come together over a bonfire and break bread and share stories. And as far as like the language, I think it's important. That's blueberries. It's not dirt. One second, babe. Also, like you know, coming up with, you know, terms that are not harmful. Like language can be so weaponized and polarizing and divisive. And if we started to come together and come up with shared language and shared definitions, just in that process of coming up with those, you know, that language, I think relationships will be built and opportunities for healing will take place. Like, why don't you like that word? Well, here's why. I have a long story why I don't like that word. And then another person saying, well, I never had a problem with that word, but I can see why you do. And as a result of just those kinds of natural conversations taking place in a natural way, you know, I think opportunities for long-lasting friendships to be built. That's all I got. She's going crazy.
Thank you, everybody from the group.
I want to say thank you and hello to that little person for adding her cat-like 2 cents. Thank you, sweetheart.
I love that.
Hi, welcome.
It's great. Yeah, we have a lot more children in our meetings these days than we ever have, and it's a much more welcoming space. I appreciate it. So, as it should be. So, on to our farmer fisher needs across regions. Joelle's group.
Miranda, would you like me to share our Jamboard, or what's easiest?
Yeah, if you're able to. And then while you're sharing, I'll just get started. So our group was focused on identifying the needs of farmers and fishermen to build resiliency within our food system. And we collectively throughout our breakout group talked about the need to obtain the information directly from farmers and from fishermen and from aquaculture business owners, you know, the people that are doing the actual thing, and ensuring the information is coming from a diverse and representative group of these stakeholders, and that's including small scale individuals. And we discussed that the next steps could be to accomplish this include continuing facilitation like that this convergence has been doing, and to continue building relationships and to continue understanding identities and integrating more groups that are relevant within the systems map, and only continue to build on sharing information and understanding one another. And we could also develop working groups that could break out specific topical areas. And we talked a lot about supporting equitable legislative actions, and potentially building a coalition of people and organizations from this convergence to help move policy and give a more cohesive collective voice to the needs of farmers and fishermen and fisheries to build resiliency within the food system. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Wish it could be in every conversation at once. You guys had a great one. Anybody else from that group want to share out?
I kind of want to share something, but it's not my idea. So I wonder, Bill, if you would mind me just asking you to share what you had mentioned about this convergence being like a meta tool for organizing. You had put it really well during our discussion.
Well, there's so many good ideas and so much talent in our groups, and you know, it may be that we're not going to connect all the dots in the few hours that we have. However, the momentum of the convergence as a meta level organizing tool that can take those ideas and allow them to grow and evolve, it makes us feel like the beginning of something. And I feel it's okay to not have all the answers, but still trust that momentum. I hope I summarized it again. Yeah.
Bill, would you be happy if we reached back out to you? Would that be okay to talk more about that? Because we are really going to try to putting our heads together now to figure out how to carry this project forward. I mean, we pretty much were, you know, this was the top of the mountain for us for a long time, and, you know, kind of out on the horizon was, yeah, what happens after, but let's just get to March 11th. But now we're starting to have these conversations, and if others have ideas about how we can carry this work forward in the most productive way, it would be great to hear from you, and maybe we'll have some convenings, just small convenings around next steps.
Absolutely.
Anybody else on that group? Was it just the three?
Nope, we have one more, the shifting regulations towards regenerative practices, which was Jamie's group.
Let's hear from Jamie's group, unless anyone else has anything on that last one. Go, Jamie.
All right. Hello, everyone. So again, our group was talking about shifting regulatory structures and subsidies to promote regenerative. Oh, I lost my screen. Regenerative agriculture. I'm going to leave it there because I don't know what the rest of it said. But we thought the folks that really need to be involved were farmers. And like they really, really need to have a seat at the table instead of having to act through other organizations. We definitely thought that people that eat, all of us, need to be involved. Nonprofits have a place, policy organizations have a place, organizations like CEI, Maine DACF, all have a place. They need to be involved. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of work from kind of each of us doing the piece that we're best at. And then kind of our next steps were around, you know, determining how to get the appropriate support for any action. So example, is it that farmers need to be supporting this, or is it grassroots, you know, folks, community members that need to be sort of supporting it? So how do we engage that group for whatever the policy is we're trying to change? We need to make sure that we are implementing food systems education in so many ways, whether that's with school children or that's a farmer agreeing to take time out of their day and go talk at a community event, because that brings the passion for food systems and healthy food systems to the people that do the buying, you know. We need stipends that allow farmers to partake in being in the heart of it. Can they afford to take the time away to lend their voices? And something that's already happening that we thought was important, or maybe this is me interjecting my own opinion, but the policy newsletters that Ken has started sending out are a great way to kind of help people understand what's on the table, and then maybe in time understand how they can participate. And linking from that, trainings, you know, there's so many trainings out there in the world for farmers and people, and maybe some trainings around how to testify, how to support a bill, so it's not this big scary thing that is someone else's job. That's all I got, unless somebody else from our group would like to pipe in, and you are most welcome to. So please do.
Did you talk about reward systems?
Oh, no, I saved that one just for you, Nan.
And if I talk, the dogs will start barking. So I'll try to do it really fast. And maybe I should start my video. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I thought it was a critical part of our group talking about the fact that farmers as the critical resource on the farm, not just air, water, and soil, which is what NRCS deals with as a resource concern. The farmer as a resource concern, being able to make their margins, et cetera, et cetera. As a steward, they're the ones that are actually implementing the regenerative practices. They are, you know, agriculture is a zero-basis manufacturing production system, and it's their sweat equity goes into building soil, and that's where the regenerative practices and results really happen. That's where the rubber hits the road, and yet we do not get compensated as service providers, only for the product that we yield. That's the current model. So shifting that model, looking also at and creating perhaps an income stream, and LD 437 is certainly a way to to spiff up that bill so that actually works for farmers, not for organizations. That we talked about pension for preservation, which is another way to reward farmers after they've been in for a while for the work that they've done to create regenerative practices on their farm, and actually build soil and build the carbon sponge. Yeah, so creating a reward system for the service we provide, not just the products that we make or grow. And also we talked about education systems.
And just we gotta get closing.
Education needs to also include fiber, not just food. That's all.
Great. Thank you. Sorry to cut you off.
Totally fine.
Yeah, so here we are, 5 minutes. Wow, so much amazing work. It's and so much work before this. I'm finding myself getting sort of emotional here. However, we do have a couple more slides. There's a few organizations that I believe we have these links to go into the chat. I don't see them in the notes right now. Can you get to the next slide? Is just a few networks, a few organizations to keep an eye on and maybe subscribe to newsletters and just be aware of. I don't know, are the links, I know we had these links and I don't see them now, but anyway, a few organizations that could carry, will be carrying on some of this work. And also, again, if you should be subscribed to the Food Convergence newsletter, so there'll be updates there. If you subscribe to Ken's newsletter, you're gonna get updates there on policy stuff. So, Annie, did you want to throw that other poll out there? We've still have like a couple of minutes to do that.
I don't know. I'm not really feeling like it.
I'm feeling like just absorbing so much right now.
Exactly.
I just can't express how much gratitude I have to everyone who's put in so much thought and passion into this work, and so much of their true selves. I feel like, you know, I've been in a lot of meetings where people kind of speak from like what they know and sharing like their knowledge, and I felt like people were asking a lot more questions here, and it's those big questions that if we can be in that together and share those questions and try to work on them together, that, you know, we can really do something transformative here and really build a movement that's deep enough and strong enough and to face up to what we're, you know, to the other side of the food system, which is, you know, where we get a lot of our food that's coming from this completely disconnected practice, disconnected from the earth, where we're, you know, separate animals from the land and turn the land into monocultures with chemicals and tons of inputs. And it's such a, I think we're in this keto moment here where the food system becomes, instead of this thing that is like really exacerbating and causing the climate crisis to the point where, you know, 30% of our greenhouse gas emissions are related to agriculture, that the food system could become the thing that really reconnects us with the earth and starts to draw down greenhouse gases and reestablish our relationship and bring the earth back to life and solve the problem that it's created. So again, just thank you all so much. And Heather, do you want to add anything before we move on? You can just switch to that last quote if you want, Sandy. And Heather, do you want to check out? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, I just want to express my appreciation like Scott has and say that in my feeling, this process, you know, we have built relationships and connections, and we've also planted some seeds, and the next steps moving forward are to nurture those seeds and to watch them grow and have faith that they will grow. So that's how I'm feeling about this process for me so far, and just appreciate everyone that's helped me be a part of it, because I feel like we really have centered Wabanaki and BIPOC voices in this convergence, which is the reason why I came here and joined.
Maybe we can just wrap it up by reading this quote from Daniel Christian Wall. It's from his book called Designing Regenerative Cultures. We can all contribute to the transition towards a sustaining, resilient, and thriving culture, moving from the mess we are in beyond sustainability to the thrivability of the whole community of life. So thanks again to everybody, and be well, and hopefully the next time we'll be in the garden together.